Can we talk about how miserable white people are for a second? Like, you know that white people are miserable, right? Like, have you ever looked a white person in the eye, even if they're like a big mental health person? You just look deep down and you're like, brother, you are not happy at all.
Right now, I'm in the middle of continuing to deconstruct my ideas around capitalism and the role of the United States, the country of my birth and raising, and like I've never left. I've lifelong. Never gone anywhere.
I'm glad you're watching Amazing Viewer. It's another exciting time. Thank you so much for spending your precious time with me. If this is your first time, consider subscribing to the channel. And if you're coming back to watch my content, just know you're the real one. Let's dive into today's video. We'll be looking at this video. Hearing these words coming from a white person made me, search more to know what's really happening. You know, when he utters words like white people aren't happy, you know, they're miserable. That's the right term that he used here. There's so many things that he talked about, the lack of internal congruence. So there's a word that's congruence that he talked of, and I can't say it better than that. But there are also other things that other people came up with that has raised the US to a greater standard, where their life is wired in a way that they aren't allowed to fail. You know, the American dream, you're great, you're meant for success. So many people don't get to understand failure. So their life is wired in a way that they run after success, and at the end of all, they lack life on its own. You know, when you run after money, there's a way you don't experience life as it is. So there's some people who spoke on this. So I could only grab some videos, some clips. So that's what I'll be playing here. Some stitches of people who have reacted to this, and some of the people who are trying to get into the healing process. They realize that they were unhappy, and they're trying to unlearn some of the things that they learned that weren't helpful for them. So I'll let you enjoy the rest of the video. I just want to remind you that on this channel we don't promote any kind of violence. It's for educational purposes. Let's inform ourselves. I'll be glad to read from you. Enjoy the rest. I appreciate it.
Can we talk about how miserable white people are for a second? Like, you know that white people are miserable, right? Like, have you ever looked a white person in the eye, even if they're like a big mental health person? You just look deep down and you're like, brother, you are not happy at all. And truly, it breaks my heart. But one reason, I think, one of the main reasons that a lot of white people, a lot of us are really unhappy and miserable is because we lack internal congruence. Now, congruence is a concept we learned early in grad school to help people heal. And congruence is basically internal alignment. Values and actions are on the same page, right? Like, we accept every part of ourselves. We feel peace, security in who we are. Congruence. And no matter how hard you try, you can never find internal congruence if you're not congruent with the world around you. If you're not understanding what's real and seeing reality and affirming what's true. So like white people who deny patriarchy and capitalism's negative effect and oppression of the world and genocide that's happening around the world, like that's incongruent with reality. That is going to have an effect on us internally, because to deny what's happening in real time, we have to deny certain parts of us, certain emotions, certain thoughts that come up. And the more we run for that, the more incongruent and separate we feel, the more dissonance that comes, the more miserable we are. And a lot of times we're not actually dealing with our own pain and our own reality, because we're all suffering under capitalism and white supremacy. Like, it affects us different ways in intersectionality, but like it affects us white people too. You don't think a stormtrooper in the fucking Star Wars movies hates his life? You don't think he hates being bossed around all the time? You don't think poor white people living in the empire, like in a city walls, like in a Game of Thrones, like you don't think that they're miserable under it, even though they're not miserable the most? To be congruent inside, to not be miserable anymore, it takes accepting the realities of the world, seeing how those toxic systems affect us, and then moving to actually be congruent. Because deep down, humanity has goodness at its center. So yeah, white people, we're miserable because we're not congruent, because we're denying the realities of the world, and thus denying ourselves.
Now that you're back, you've watched this entire video, let's freaking talk about it. So for me, I'm currently in the angry stage of my deconstruction. It started for me in 2020 with all the discussion that happened there around race and things. I started to see a little more clearly the reality of what my Black, Indigenous, and people of color brothers and sisters see and experience on a daily basis. My eyes were opened in ways that they just hadn't been before. I had never been faced with those stark realities as much as they were in 2020. I was in group discussions and focus groups where we were talking about race much more openly, much more really than had ever occurred in my circles than ever before. And it was shocking and it was horrifying, and I just struggled for a really long time with just the depth of their experience in everything that entails. From then, a year and some change later, I started digging into and really learning more about misogyny and just the experience that women have and go through on a daily basis in our modern day society and have through history. I've read books and I have heard experiences that have shocked me, horrified me, made me cry, made me weep, and really made me look at myself and my actions and how I move through the world and how I interact with people, specifically with women. Right now, I'm in the middle of continuing to deconstruct my ideas around capitalism and the role of the United States, the country of my birth and raising, and I've never left. I've lifelong, never gone anywhere, just me here. And I'm deconstructing what I thought I knew about our history, what I thought I knew about who we are and what we stand for, the values that drive us and the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis that impact the rest of the world, and why those decisions are made, and realizing that the tales that I was told about how this country came to be and the role that this country has played since the beginning, and the values, again, that drive us and drive our interactions and drive our being with the rest of the world have largely been a lie. Now, as someone who is a member of, again, all of those things, I am a white, heterosexual male living in the United States. In terms of privileges, it doesn't get much more than that, unless you want to start talking about class, in which case I'll never be rich. But if you've stuck around up to this point and you look like me and you are at the very, very cusp, or if you haven't even started your journey into deconstructing the fact that we live in a misogynistic, white supremacist, imperialist, colonizing, capitalistic society, I feel for you. I hope that you will start to ask more questions. I genuinely hope that you will start to look for the cracks, because the cracks is how you will see what lies behind and see the truth of who we have been, so that we can start to really address who we become. Because it's only by realizing and recognizing who we are that we can do anything about it in changing into who we always thought we were. Most importantly, who we want to become. That is the most critical thing, is that we're not, again, people who look like you and I. We have a responsibility to look at the roles that if not our direct ancestors, then our spiritual, our idealistic ancestors, the people that looked like us. We have a responsibility to take and hold place for accountability for the people that look like us, for the people that look like us and what they have done through our collective history. Because it's only by poking, prodding, and coming to a fuller, more rich understanding of that history that we can move forward in ways that are no longer harmful, in ways that are no longer exploitive, in ways that are no longer taking others and making them pawns, making them materials for our machine. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not a conspiracy. There is no group of 5 individuals This is a societal, this is a cultural phenomenon. This is not us telling you that there's a cabal of individuals. Like, it's you and me. We are the face. We are the face and we are the beneficiaries. And it's only us taking accountability, again, looking it square in the face, asking questions, reading the books, doing the work, doing the inner work of examining our beliefs, like this creator that I just stitched, who I appreciate his perspective, taking those into consideration and then working through it ourselves first so that we can start working on who we want to be, because those two are not in harmony. And this is why people in the United States, this is why people who look like me are so angry, is because there is that dissonance, as he said. There is that incongruence between who we think we are and the ideals that we think we are fighting for and the ideals that are actually driving the decisions and the actions that we collectively are taking. There needs to be accountability, and it starts with you and with me. Reading, asking questions, examining ourselves, examining our country, examining our history, again, so that we can play a larger role in where we go from here. I hope that you'll join it. It's been one of the most difficult periods of my life, but I would not change it for anything.
On being like the world's loudest advocate.
I'm a little nervous about what comes next, what deconstructs next.
Because then they can just try to not focus
but it's
on
important.
how unhappy they
and I will
are,
keep doing
and
it.
instead
I will
try to
keep
make
reading.
everyone
I
else
will
around
keep
them
asking
unhappy
questions,
because
and I will keep talking about it and
shit in
sharing
there.
what I'm
And here's my
learning
thing
because
with
it
that,
is so
right?
important.
Full transparency,
I hope
the
you'll
world
join us.
is shit. I can go on full fucking rants and tirades about how everything's racist to a degree, everyone's sexist to a degree, gender problems are a real thing, America's a fucking dumpster fire, but then so are other countries because we can't even settle on the idea of should we allow another country to shoot people? So that's, where we're at with life. For years and years, we've been fighting tooth and nail for a lot of these things, and a lot of white people in general are just now getting involved in these things. And that's why I've said we need to be more honest with ourselves about two major red flags in our lives, especially when it comes to things like content creation, influencers, activists, etc. Just as much as we talk about how people who say no politics are dangerous, people who make their entire fucking personality into activism are also dangerous. Because I can tell you with conviction, the biggest people that I ban from the wine cellar on a regular basis are supposedly well-meaning, but not really, white people who come in and they want to lecture everyone and their mom about how atrocious the world is, as though we do not have front row seats to that son bitch. And I love that he brought up even things like mental health people and whatnot, because those be some of the worst motherfucking cases. People who are just like, I'm a mental health advocate, I want to make sure everyone can take care of their best them, and blah, 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 blah. And they're in the back eating like 6 pounds of fudge on a daily basis saying, don't judge me for my eating habits, I'm still taking calories. And it's like, no, this isn't the time to be an activist. We are actually concerned because you need like more than just 6 pounds of fudge for your day. Yes, depression is real and anxiety is real and not being able to go to a therapist to get diagnosed is real. All those are very accurate things, but none of us need to be a therapist to know that you are literally tormenting your insides right now. Let's dial it back a little bit. But yeah, it's why I've stopped doing so much activism stuff my damn self, because obviously I do it on here because it's easy to do and I can just talk about it. Okay, Drew makes jokes, but he has a point. It's easier for me to do a 3 to 10 minute video than to fucking write on Twitter for an hour. Jesus Christ, that was a horrible timeline. But I've just grown exhausted of the overwhelming number of white people who will come onto my posts and whatnot to prove with every fiber of their being how aware they are that the world is bad, how aware they are that things are terrible. And then what happens after that is that they inject themselves into it. And I can't decide if it's because it's kind of like an overstimulation thing, they just are amazed at how bad the world is, or if it's because they want to be the center of attention, because we also know that white people fight tooth and nail to find ways that they're oppressed. This is why, again, the main people I've banned from the wine cellar en masse have been white people who, if they get told that their worldview is off even by like a millimeter, they have complete explosions and attacks on the entire community, and they are fast to remind you things about how they're autistic, they're ADHD, they're disabled, they're trans, or they're neurodivergent, and blah, 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 blah. Again, you're telling this to people who have front row seats to this shit. And I think it makes certain white people really angry when someone like me, who has been oppressed from like multiple different angles, like you have to remember, my grandmother was one of the first black people in America to vote. that is not something to be proud of. That is something to be terrified of. Because that means that it's only 3 generations away that I've been capable of voting, and y'all will bully the fuck out of us to do so. So, like, that's where I am. And that's like the background noise in my life. And I think it really bothers a lot of them that with that as my background noise in my life, with having to wrestle with gender stuff as I do on a regular basis, becoming a she, they, and really, really being happy about it, having to wrestle with a lot of transgressions, microaggressions, all of that stuff, and then having the nerve to find joy amongst all that, really makes people angry. Like, they want you to be just pissed off all the time, and I refuse. I won't do it. I know why the world hates me, and I hate the world back. Every motherfucker who has a problem with me can step on goddamn logos and just swallow glass as far as I'm concerned. But trust when I say, I'm still gonna find happiness in this life. And that's a point blank period thing. I can fight for better and still be happy that I got my lashes done this week. And that makes a lot of them really angry because they want to be angry all the time.
We need to understand, like, when we talk about wealth, it should be inherent that idea is also speaking on health. Because when I went to Africa and I look at them little children, they have a joy that people in America can't even buy. Yeah. Joy, increases the heart size, right? And the bigger your heart, the more joy you can feel, right? And that happens when you are being grateful, right? And a lot of people in America are not grateful, right? We want more and more and more and more and more. So we learn how to work, and not just America, but in the Western world. But we learn how to work, but we don't learn how to live. And the art of living increases joy. The art of working, that increases money. It's different. So people learn how to make money, right? But they don't know how to live joyfully. So we have to get back to the practice of understanding part of that wealth, right, is you actually have to enjoy life. Right? Because what's that to be a millionaire, a billionaire, and you depressed? You go at home and you look in the mirror and you ashamed of yourself. You don't like the person you see, so you walk outside and spend all your money to put on a facade. So now your joy is a liability, right? And that liability can decrease your net worth when you're talking about your true wealth.
Shut your white mouth. I'm not kidding you. I know some of you was raised in the deep South and you was raised by prejudiced people and bigoted people. You better get that out of your system. You better get it out of your system. It'll cause you to suffer right along with those masters. It'll cause you to suffer right along with them. These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked in white races and wicked in black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here. And God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their labor. You watch what I tell you. Watch what I tell you.
That was it about this video, guys. Thank you so much for spending your precious time with me. I appreciate. Also, don't forget to leave your thoughts kindly. I love interacting. Don't forget to turn on that bell, subscribe and turn on the bell so that you get notified whenever we have a new video. Also leave your thoughts. Goodbye for now. I appreciate your precious time.